Hi everyone. It's time once again for Steve's Storytime. Today we got a special guest. This is Kuma here, and I thought she'd make it seem very homey, like I'm just sharing a story with you from my living room. Tonight's story is called Roy Orbison on a Submarine. Why is it called that? Well, you're going to find out very, very soon. I was on a submarine, if you don't know that, the USS Scranton, SSN 756. It was a nuclear fast attack submarine. And I can't speak for the technology today, but at that point, when we went underwater, we were completely cut off from the world. So I don't know if they have things now that allow internet or antennas then, but then we would have to come up to what we called snorkel depth, and we'd raise a mast, and then we could get radio transmissions. In fact, one of the things I remember most is being on board the USS Scranton when the Chicago Bulls went to their first NBA championship. And so I was getting scores. We would only get them every couple days. We would raise the mast, we'd get some radio signals, and then they would get a printout of what was going on. And so you're really removed from the world. I remember hearing about the Waco incident in Texas and the David Koresh, that all going on. So we would get these news feeds, and we'd get them a couple days late. So you'd read about things that happened 3-4 days ago. That's how it happened back in the 90s. So again, today maybe they have some underwater internet or buoys that can pass on internet and they get things quicker. I don't know. And my submarine friends that are out there can maybe speak to that. But at that point, when we went underwater, we were cut off. So people always ask, what's the longest you were ever underwater? And 7 weeks. And I believe this story happened during that 7 weeks. So we went 7 weeks without really coming up. We would pop up and get some news from time to time, but basically we were out there and didn't come up. So one time on what was called the mid-watch, and that's from midnight, we would run an 18-hour day. We didn't have 24-hour days on the submarine. So you would stand watch for 6 hours, then you'd be off for 6 hours, and then you would sleep for 6 hours. So I was on the mid-watch, and so that was from midnight to 6 in the morning. And that was the slowest one, and my other dog, sorry, is trying to steal some of the carrots. I don't know why it cracks me up when dogs eat carrots or chips, just hearing them crunch like that. I just love that sound. Okay, so I'm on the mid-watch on the USS Scranton, and we just start talking. Everyone else is asleep. That's most of the people on board the submarine are asleep. And at one point, someone starts talking about great music and what's good old music. And at that point, I was in my early 20s, and the oldest people on the submarine, the more senior guys, they were in their 40s, sometimes maybe even 50s, but mostly 40s. Those were the salty old men on a submarine. Were in their 40s, and they did seem old and salty, even though I'm their age now, and I don't think I'm as old and salty as they were. But anyways, the point of this whole story is we started talking about music, and at one point one of the old guys was like, no, the music isn't as good now here in the 90s as it was when I was growing up. We grew up with Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and Roy Orbison. And someone's like, Roy Orbison, who's that? And someone else like, Roy Orbison, you heard Roy Orbison? Roy Orbison, he's fantastic. Only the Lonely and that. And someone else, then one of the other old guys goes, Roy Orbison was fantastic, but boy, that guy was blind as a bat. And then someone else was like, what? He's like, yeah, he was blind as a bat. I saw him in concert one time. He was blind as a bat. And then someone else goes, no. Roy Orbison wasn't blind. He just wore big glasses. He wasn't blind. And then, so there was maybe like 7-8 of us up in the control room. And on total watch, most people were sleeping out that time because of the mid-watch. Total on watch for the whole ship was maybe 35 people at that time. And so we started asking around for the other people who was awake. Was Roy Orbison blind? Because there was no way to find out. We didn't have the internet. We couldn't just look it up. You just couldn't be like, was Roy Orbison blind? And so we started asking, and it was 50-50. So half the people on watch thought he was blind, and the other half were like, no, Roy Orbison wasn't blind. There were people who swore they saw him at concert, and they walked him out with a cane, and that's why he had the glasses like a blind person, because he was blind. And so there was a big argument. So anyways, end of the watch at 6 a.m. I go to sleep. I wake up. I wake up. I probably slept in extra that day. Maybe it was a weekend or something. And I get up 8-9 hours later, and I get up, and everyone on the ship is arguing. I get up and I have lunch or an early dinner, and everyone is arguing about Roy. Like, people are yelling across each other, I saw him live! Roy Orbison was blind! And then other people are like, no, he wasn't. I met the man. He was not blind. And then other people are like, I saw him 100 times. He was on Johnny Carson. I saw his eyes. He didn't have a thing. But there was no way to answer this question. We couldn't answer the question. And of course, you can imagine being a nuclear submarine, we couldn't, even when we could raise the mast, when we came up to the snorkel depth and got some radio transmissions, we couldn't be like, hey, we got your transmissions about the very important nuclear warfare practices we should be doing and strategy and where we're going and that. By the way, was Roy Orbison blind? Can you guys check into that back at the submarine squadron back in Norfolk, Virginia? Can someone check that out? And again, the internet itself was in its infancy at that time, so I don't even know if you can find out. I don't know if you listening know. Was Roy Orbison blind? Do you know? If you've ever seen him, he's got the big glasses. Did you ever get to see him walk out on stage, or was he already there when the concert started, or when the song started, wherever you saw him? Whatever you're arguing, the answer is Roy Orbison was not blind. He was not blind, but it became the talk of the submarine for probably about 3 weeks, somewhere in the 90s, lost in the Atlantic Ocean, because technology wasn't it. So that's my Roy Orbison was not blind story. And this has been Kuma. She's been helping with the story. She's not blind either. Some people see her eyes sometimes and think because she's got one eye colored differently. She's like Roy Orbison. People think she's blind, but she's not. Thank you for joining. I hope you're enjoying the Steve Storytime. This time was a comfy one, and maybe we'll have an Afghan tomorrow night and some cocoa. And I hope wherever you are, you're safe and healthy and getting through this quarantine. All right. Love everyone. Bye.